Have you ever wondered where the name Barbeau came from? Place names come from many different sources. Some places are named after the person or family who started it. For example, Reedsburg was named for David C. Reed. Some places are named because of their location. Rock Springs is named for the rocky cliffs and the natural water springs there. The city of Barbeau was named because of the Barbeau River. The river was named Barbeau long before there was a city named Barbeau. So where did the name come from? The name is actually from the last name of a man who was born in Canada over 300 years ago. The man's name was
Francois Barbeau. Bonjour, mes amis.
On November 4th, 1698, Francois was born in Boucherville, which was a farming village across the St. Lawrence River from Quebec in Canada, or New France as it was called at that time. His parents were Jean and Marie Barbeau, and they had 16 children in all. Francois grew up helping out on the family farm, learning how to grow food in the garden and how to tend animals. In 1708, when Francois was about 10 years old, this map of North America was printed. If we look at one part of the map, we can see where Quebec is, along the St. Lawrence River, and we can also see the Great Lakes. Can you tell where Wisconsin will be? The writing is all in French because during Francois' lifetime, all of the land in Canada and around the Great Lakes was claimed by the country of France. Many of the names on the maps are the names of Indian tribes in New France. Do you recognize some names? When Francois Barbeau was growing up on the St. Lawrence River, it was a busy place with ships coming and going from Quebec City. Water travel was a way of life for Francois. There were no bridges across the river, so to get to Quebec he would have to travel by boat or ship. Francois grew up to have a family of his own. He would have been dressed much like this reenactor in the wintertime. His snowshoes would have helped him travel during the wintertime. As an adult, Francois served as a soldier with the French forces in Canada. By 1747, he was living far away from where he grew up near Quebec, at a fort called Fort Michilimackinac. This was a French fort built on an island where the two Great Lakes, Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, meet. How do you think Francois traveled from Quebec to Fort Michilimackinac? At that time, the waterways were the highways. Fort Michilimackinac was built to help the French control trading with the Indians of the area, and as a place where traders could be sent out from to trade with the Indians to the north and to the west. In 1749, Francois Barbeau received official permission to become a voyageur, or official trader, and trade with the Indians.
Au revoir, mes amis. Au revoir, mes amis.
He would travel further to the west and set up a post where he could meet the Indians.
Laissez-nous voyager vers l'ouest.
He could not do this alone, however, so he hired 6 men to go with him. They would help with transportation, haul goods, build the trading post, and get the whole crew back to the fort. Francois and his men would make the journey from Fort Michilimackinac in a canoe. It was about 20 feet long and had to hold all 7 men and all of their supplies. The canoe was made of wood and birch bark. It was fragile and had to be treated with respect. Francois and his men took the following supplies: 800 pounds of hardtack, which is like hard crackers, 250 pounds of bacon, 5 bushels of peas, these were dried of course, 4 pieces of bark for shelter, 2 5-foot lengths of canoe bark for repairs, 20 pounds of gum. This is natural resin to coat seams and make the canoe watertight, root to sew the canoe for repairs, 4 big canoe poles to push the canoe instead of paddles, 12 yards of cloth sail. Sometimes the canoe could use a sail and become a sailboat. 1 covered metal kettle, 4.5 pounds of gunpowder, 8 pounds of lead bullets, and 1 sponge. The men left Fort Michilimackinac in the early fall of 1849 and began paddling for Lake Michigan. Once in Lake Michigan, they followed the shoreline and headed for what we now call Green Bay. When Francois and his men had reached what is now Wisconsin, they traveled up the Fox River. When the canoe could not safely travel on the river, everything had to be unloaded and carried on land, including the canoe, until the river was safe enough to travel on. Finally, Francois and his men reached a place where the Fox River is very close to the much larger Wisconsin River, and it was possible to carry the supplies and the canoe from one river to the other. This place was called the portage. What does portage mean? The carrying of a boat from one place to another. The city of Portage was named because of this place, where indigenous people, traders, and other people could get from one river to another. After finally reaching the Wisconsin River at Portage, Francois and his men only traveled a short distance until they found a small river entering the Wisconsin River. They may have been told about the place or found it themselves, but it is the spot that Francois chose to build a trading post. High on a hill above the river, Francois and his men worked quickly to build a small trading post consisting of a small house surrounded by a palisade or fence of upright logs. The men also had to cut an enormous amount of firewood in order to make it through the winter. Another task that had to be completed before winter set in was to bury the canoe. Since the canoe was made out of bark, if it was left out in the harsh winter wind, it would dry out and crack, making it useless and stranding the men. Now that the men were set up, what were they here to do? The purpose of all that hard work and travel was to trade with the indigenous people. But what were they trading? Francois and his men brought hundreds of pounds of trade goods to give to the indigenous people in exchange for animal pelts and furs.
Au revoir, mes amis.